Hello everyone, welcome to Urbanscape Bangalore, and in this episode we will be looking at the indomitable rose, a plant that has kick-started many a garden journeys, including my mother's. So the rose is a big plant with some big problems. So I will be making two parts of this video, and in this first part I will be talking about propagating a rose plant and some basic care needs that will make your garden resonate with the radiance and the inimitable fragrance of the rose. So first, let us look at the propagation. So propagating a rose plant is very simple. Just identify a green cutting with some leaves on it, or even if you don't see leaves, you can still take the cutting. Now cut at a 45-degree angle just below a node. The node is a point where you see leaves coming out. Now, the 45-degree angle is because once the cutting is taken, the stalk that remains in the mother plant will wash out rainwater, etc. easily if it is cut at an angle. If you cut it straight, then there are chances of the rain staying on the freshly cut stalk and causing fungal infection, which is quite common in the rose plant. Now, for the potting mix, I would say that the rose is such a versatile plant that it can grow in any potting medium. Even if you just have garden soil, it will still root up. But just as a best practice, use a well-draining mix of 30% sand, 40% garden soil, and 30% compost. Keep the medium as rich as possible because this plant is a heavy feeder. Water retention is important for this plant. That is why I have increased the amount of garden soil. If you have coco peat, you can use that instead of the garden soil. Now place the cutting in the middle and backfill so that you cover the node that will eventually produce roots. I would suggest that you place one cutting per pot. Now, I don't believe in using root hormones, honey, and all that because in gardening, you need to trust your plants to do what they are actually good at, that is, growing, surviving, etc. So, keep all those hormones away and place your trust on them and see them flourish. Now add water and keep it under part sunlight conditions. The east would be the perfect location for such cuttings. And in no time you would notice new shoots coming out of the cutting, and that means the plant has rooted really well, and when you see more leaves and blooms on the cutting, you can safely transplant the sapling. So this is how easy it is to grow a rose. Now some people grow a rose from seeds, but with stem cuttings the advantage is that it's like cloning. You get the same flower again and again. With seeds, the characteristics of the flower may differ. Now to transplant this, take a bigger container with holes at the bottom. Cover the hole with a drainage material like this and use the same proportion of well-draining potting mix of sand, soil and compost. Remove the sapling carefully without breaking the roots of the plant. If you see the plant is root bound, you are free to tease the roots. Now place the plant in the middle and backfill, making sure you maintain the same soil level as before. Never drown your plant with soil. The rose is a solitary plant, which means that it likes to be alone in a pot. So don't use it in container arrangements, etc., because it would not get that much needed air circulation around its stems and the plant could attract a lot of diseases. The rubbing of the stems of one plant also can cause fungal diseases, so you must cut that portion that is overlapping. Now the only thing left is to water the plant thoroughly. Make sure you do this propagation and repotting etc. in the evenings and not in the afternoon because the plant can get stressed out in the afternoon blazing hot sun. Here you can add lots of compost or cow dung powder or goat manure as mulch because the rose is a heavy feeder and it requires rigorous fertilizing throughout the year, especially during the summer months. Now place this plant under full blazing hot sun and you can see it producing bumper blooms within days. The best part about the rose is that it can bloom throughout the year if you live in tropical zones. Now let us look at the ideal growing conditions that this plant likes. Sunlight. So by now you know that this likes full sun. The more the sunlight, the more would be the blooms. Some climbing varieties though will still bloom in partial sun, may be grown against a wall, etc. But a minimum of 6 hours of sunlight is necessary for this plant to flower. Next will be watering. This plant is super thirsty, so consistently water the plant every day during summer. Sometimes, depending on your location's daytime temperature, you would need to water this twice a day. But again, depending on how well draining your soil is. If you have clayey soil, reduce watering to just once a day during summer. Winters, you can reduce watering depending on the soil wetness. Overwatering is the most likely reason for fungal spots on this plant. So avoid overwatering, it can still take underwatering. Fertilizing. So, depending on whether you are an organic gardener or you believe in synthetic fertilizers, you must heavily fertilize this plant during summers, especially. So, I prefer the kitchen waste route with some cow dung powder, compost, goat manure, etc. So, there is no limit to organically fertilizing your roses. You can add as much of this as possible. But with synthetic fertilizers, reduce the quantity to a handful once every month or so because using a lot of chemical fertilizers will burn the roots and kill the plant. So I would advise you to go organic with this plant. Going organic will improve the soil chemistry as well. So, with this, we've come to the end of the part 1 episode on the rose plant. So, in part 2 of the video, we will look at some pest problems that affect the rose plant and how we can solve it. Also, we will look at some common types of roses Indian gardens have and much more. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this episode and also learned something new. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook for further updates. The links are given below. So thank you for watching, and until we meet again, a very warm goodbye.